Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and normally on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting them the answers they need from an employment attorney. But today, I'm phoning it in. Just gonna be honest with you, I'm phoning it in. I'm gonna tell a story. We're doing story time, and I hope it's funny because there are many among us who believe life is but a joke, right? All right, so I want to be clear with this story. I think the story is very funny. You may not. Also, I changed this story significantly. There are significant chunks of this story that are fake, fiction. Not in meaningful ways, but what I'm trying to do is this is all public information, but I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I don't want anyone involved to be embarrassed. So, while none of this is confidential anymore, it's all out in the world and publicly available. By the same token, I'm not trying to draw attention to any of it, right? My goodness. Okay. So, at some point in the last, we'll call it decade, I was representing someone who was uninvolved in this story, but his context was right. I was representing an individual, and one of the witnesses in the case had gone to jail for some significant jail time. We'll say that, for some significant jail time. And it didn't change the fact that I had to depose that person. Actually, I didn't have to depose that person. The defense attorneys needed to depose that person, and I wanted to be there because I wanted to make sure they didn't sink my case, something like that. And I was working at a firm. There's a bunch of other attorneys who could have gone, but my stable of attorneys that I worked with at that time were perhaps not like the best suited to going and doing a deposition in like a high security facility, if that makes sense. So I figured, listen, if you want a job done right, you do it yourself. If you want a dirty job done, you ought to do it yourself as well. Not that there's anything wrong. Listen, represent a lot of prison guards. Tough gig, tough job, right? Certainly represent a lot of people who were also, in prison. There's a lot of criminal record discrimination. That is a tough gig as well, being incarcerated, no question. Now, so I go, put my little suit on, go to the facility. Takes me, 2 hours to get there, which means I got to leave at like 5 o'clock in the morning to get to this place for 9. So I get there. The defense attorney gets there. Defense attorney is flown across the country. I don't want to identify the city, but it was like a regional defense firm. These are fairly rare. There's a lot of national defense firms, like the big, I guess you kind of think of them as the big 20. But there's a lot of these regional defense firms that are not in the big 20 that if you're in a small part of the United States, they might cover like 3 to 5 states. They might be the local option in those 3 to 5 states. For whatever reason, this person got called up to the big show. I guess that they were like well known by their clients in that area, and the client had expanded perhaps, and now they were flying attorneys across the country. Probably very exciting for them and for their billing department. So I roll up to the facility, and so does the defense attorney and the court reporter. All roll up to the facility. And the defense attorney was wearing kind of like a tan suit that I thought was very professional, but I guess the staff of the facility, the guards, felt was perhaps too close in color to some of the garments worn by inmates. And then while we're waiting, they start looking at the court reporter, who says, making conversation, tells me, "Oh yeah, I'm retiring. I'm getting married. I'm gonna go do something else now. So this is like my last day." And if you are a fan of movies, really police movies, I guess, whenever someone says this is their last day, they're retiring, it's not good. Not a good sign. Troubles ahead. Rough seas on the horizon. So she says that to me. We're chitty chatting. They make the defense attorney change. They're eyeballing the court reporter. They're like, listen, you got to change too. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not in khaki. But I guess there was, I think there might have been too much orange in her outfit. I don't fully understand. I'm not a incarceration professional, right? Like, I don't know what things are important to keeping individuals incarcerated in a high security facility. I don't know the first thing about it. I'm not going to second guess anyone who does, because I'd be an asshole, just be ignorant and running my mouth. So anyways, they both have to get changed. I have to give up my tie and my belt. I'm fine with that. My tie and my belt. Oh, and my bag. I'm allowed, if I remember, I want to say they swapped my pen for a pencil, and it might have been a somewhat short pencil. No eraser. But I was able to take a pad in. And, but I got to keep my suit and my shirt and everything. Just, no, I even kept my shoes, I think. But no belt, no tie. And so, like, okay, who wants to go in first? I'm like, oh, sure, I'll go. That's fine. Everybody else is getting changed, so I'll go in first. And they, like, kind of chuckle at me, and I'm like, okay. And they open a door, and I walk in, and they close the door. And I'm in a small square room. And somebody says over a little, by myself, to be clear, I'm in a small square room by myself. And somebody over like an intercom says, hey, stick your hand in the hole in the wall on the other side. So I do that. And they're like, no, dummy, turn your hand like right side up. And I guess wrist like the bottom of your wrist up. And they had branded us on the way in with these, I think, UV short-term tattoos that are not visible like normally, but when you turn your wrist up inside this little box hole in the wall, I guess there's a light and they can see your brand, right? Which I think has information for them, so they can know who should be going where, and who should be getting out and stuff like that. So I put my wrist in like this, and then something falls, like a piece falls on my wrist and locks it in place. Like I'm now not getting out. If you ever see the baboon traps that they use to capture baboons, where they like put like a snack in a hole, like an oddly shaped hole, and the baboon reaches in because the baboon can put their hand in, but once they make a fist, they can't get out. This is like some kind of ancient method of capturing baboons, I guess. But basically, it was like I was stuck, right? I'm not because of making a fist, just like this thing fell down around my hand and I can't get it out. So they read my UV. The door behind me is closed now, obviously. I'm locked in place. I can't go anywhere. My wrist is stuck in the wall. And then, while my wrist is still stuck, they open the next door. And they say, hey, you can go to the next room. And they release my wrist. And I guess they checked my brand. And I go through. And then they put me somewhere. I think they put me in like a waiting area that had like somewhat it was like a waiting area, I think, for people who were incarcerated to wait to speak to their attorneys. But somewhat hilariously, I was like not with the attorneys. It didn't seem like I was just waiting with the people who are incarcerated. And then they bring the court reporter and the defense attorney through, and they bring all of us, and now we're waiting, and they just kind of leave us there for 20 minutes. Like, we have guards with us, but like we're just waiting with the incarcerated people, and like other people's attorneys like don't seem to be inside the facility in the same way that we are. Like other attorneys, like the criminal defense attorneys, were like meeting people at like glass walls, not like inside. And that was interesting. And then they come to us and like, hey, your deposition room is ready. And they take us to what I can only describe as a giant glass box. And if you ever saw some of the X-Men movies where they have like Magneto, the supervillain guy, in giant glass boxes, like that was essentially what this was, except not giant. In fact, not even like sufficient in size at all. So like the person who's going to be deposed was in there. And then they put the court reporter and the defense attorney across the way, and they sat me next to the person who's going to be deposed, and they were like, this is your client, right? I'm like, well, no, not my client. Somebody who's testifying potentially well for my side, but like not my client. And they're like, okay, well, there's no seats left, so sit next to your client. I'm like, still not my client, but okay. And he's very jovial. We chit-chat. It's nice. We get started. They close us in the glass box. Like we are sealed in the glass box, all in like very flimsy chairs. Like I don't like not like chairs that were like confidence inspiring in terms of my weight. I was probably like 250 pounds at the time. Not feeling like I would want to like move around a lot in this chair, right? And it's probably worth noting at this point that one of the only reasons we fit into this glass box with the four of us, because the person being deposed was a sizable human, in like a burly fashion, and I wasn't, I was probably 250 then. I'm probably 30 pounds lighter now, maybe 40 pounds lighter now, probably 40 pounds lighter now. But the defense attorney was an extremely petite gentleman, and the court reporter was also like a miniature model of human. Like not making short jokes here, just saying they were not they're not going to die of obesity, right? They're very careful with their eating, I guess I'll say. Just very petite, very, very trim. Trim is the word I'm looking for, I think. So everyone's like knee to knee. Like I'm awkwardly knee to knee with the court reporter, and the person who's being deposed is knee to knee with the defense attorney. And the defense attorney, we get started. He starts going. He is respectful for about 30 minutes. But the person being deposed is, I think mindful of the fact that this person deposing him is not, his friend. And also is like trying to keep the person who's being deposed knows that this defense attorney is trying to keep his friend from like getting paid by their past employer. So he's not the most cooperative. He's not thrilled to answer some of these questions. And the defense attorney gets more and more agitated. And I would say perhaps thought he was being taken lightly because he was a small market attorney. I don't know. Maybe there was some insecurity there, some ego. Maybe it was just his personality. Maybe he was a gentleman who gets a little feisty, right? So he starts to get a little bit more forceful with the questions, and I would say it would be fair to say a bit rude, a bit aggressive. And things continue to escalate for about an hour and a half. And then finally, the gentleman who's being deposed, who's sitting next to me, is leaning back in his very flimsy chair. And I, thinking that I was friendly and jovial and humorous, was like, better watch out, that chair's going to collapse under you. You're a little too buff to be doing that. And he looks at me and he smirks. puts his hands against the wall behind his head, and full on double leg donkey kicks the defense attorney. Like he's like leaning back in his chair, so his legs are like up in the air, and just jackknifes his entire body to double leg donkey kick this small-ish gentleman with all the force that his body can generate while braced against the giant glass wall. And that attorney had about 6 inches of room to sail before he hit the wall at the other end of the glass box. And I was a bit at a loss because I'd been chatting in a friendly manner with a gentleman who was smirking at me, who then just committed a fairly aggressive act of violence. And I think the court reporter may have said, "Eep," and become the smallest human possible in a corner of the box. And I think I was like, I think I had like an utterance. I think I like without even thinking was like, oh boy, like this is not great. And I don't believe, it's been a long time, I don't believe there were guards like watching us in the box. Like I think there was like people watching the boxes in general, but there wasn't like somebody outside the door like watching like a hawk, right? So there's like a period of time that felt like 3 to 5 minutes where I think I was like, I don't know where this is going, man. What's the plan? And he was like, oh, no plan. No plan. Just didn't care for the way I was being spoken to. We've all been there. I don't fully blame him. There's certainly been times that I would have liked to double leg donkey kick certain attorneys. I haven't. I never have, and I never will. And listen, I'm a guy who's been punched in court, open court, federal court, by a very elderly attorney, right? Like this is not so surprising to me. That was, it happens. So somebody finally comes, and there's no further acts of violence. This gentleman has been deposed. Is actually quite a gentleman. He was just like a measured response of like, enough of your shit. I don't care for how you're talking to me. He didn't wail on the guy or anything. Just the one kick, which was dramatic in I think the force that he developed. And I'll give the defense attorney credit. He rolled with it. Like he hit that wall, definitely slammed his head, and then like I think fell back down into his chair and was like, he landed ready. Like I think he was like gonna like fight for his life. Like I think that was what he thought was happening when he got hit. So I give that credit. Like that is impressive. And so somebody comes like, listen, that position's over, and they like have like a group of people there to like get us out, I guess. And everyone files out in a very chill manner. They leave the person who was being deposed in there, like, we're going to talk to you later type of thing. And they were not, I had the impression that they were not mad at him. I think that they were like, who are these dumbass attorneys coming in here to this facility and running depositions over a couple $100,000? This is dumb. This is a dumb thing to engage in, right? And it wouldn't be done now. I think now it'd all be telephonic. But back then, judges would be like, no chance, no telephonic. Like, do it in person or else, right? Hence we still had attorneys flying across the country, right? How bad a decision is that in terms of the environment? It's ridiculous. Also, just the efficiency of litigation, it's ridiculous. So we left, and we're all kind of filing out. And the defense attorney on the way out, because they have to change, the defense attorney's like, hey, can you wait for me? I'm like, what? Why? If you can just wait for me. And then like the court reporter's like, yeah, you can wait for us because they both have to like change their outfits or something. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, it's gonna take me 2 hours to get home, so sure, whatever. And they come out and they're like, can you walk us to the subway? I think they were so traumatized by their experience, which I don't blame them for. Listen, not everybody is used to getting smacked around, right? Um, so I think they just were like, they didn't want to go to the subway without someone to walk them. And my first reaction was like, what do you think I'm going to do? Like, I think, uh, but I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll walk you to the subway. And yeah, that attorney called me a week later, sweet as pie. Really wanted to settle that case. This is really, really wanted to settle that case in the worst possible way. Yeah, I don't know. The funniest part of the story for me was I think at some point after the defense attorney had been kicked, the person who's being deposed was chatting with me and was like, "So I hear you're gonna make my boy some money," and I'm like, "I'm gonna try. I'm trying." You know? He was like, "I have faith." Great guy. I hope everything's cleared up. I hope, as I recall, there were no victims to any of the crimes that he committed, best of my recollection. And listen, hope he's a free fella. Hope these victimless crimes were wiped from his record. You know, hope he seemed like a nice guy. All right, like and subscribe, everybody. Helps me to help more people just like you. Remember, everybody works. Not everybody wins.